You've spelunked into the Matt Cave. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. You hear me chuckling to myself because as I started recording here, I was further into the episode than I'd like to admit. I noticed my microphone wasn't plugged in. So here we are, round 2. Let's go. Thank you all so much for being here. As always, please do like, subscribe, comment, rate, 5 stars, thumbs up, wherever you are listening, however you are listening. Please do that for me. It means the world. I love each and every one of you, and I want to keep that going. So let's just keep doing this. As most of you know, I want to do this for a living, and I can only get there with the help of my friends. So let's do that. This episode is going to be a little light until I can get serious at the very end. So I have something very important to say at the end of this episode. It is not sports or video game related. It does have to do with current events. So I will put a time marker in the description of this video if you do not want to hear about it. I will also give you time before I start talking about it at the end of the episode as well. But it's something that's been weighing on me and something that I think needs to be said, even from my little old corner of the internet. So I will give you a heads up when that happens. If you just don't want to hear it, that's fine. That's cool. But for the sports side of things, I'm going to be talking about Real Salt Lake kind of getting a wake-up call, which is good. Before we hit the playoffs, they need a wake-up call. And then I'm going to talk about Olympians from Utah. We've got quite a few, and that's really cool. So if you're going to be watching the Olympics like I am, some names for you to look out for other than the Caleb Dressels, Katie Ledecky's, LeBron Jameses of the world. We can root for our guys and gals. So I'll be going over that. Again, thank you all for being here, and let's just dive in. So first, Real Salt Lake kind of ran into a buzzsaw. The Portland Timbers hosted Real Salt Lake, and from about the first minute of the game, things went sideways. And Real Salt Lake loses this one 3-0 on the road. The Portland Timbers currently are sitting 7 points back of first place Real Salt Lake, and Portland's kind of run into a run of form here recently. They've only lost 1 of their last 8 matches. They are making a definite sprint towards the top of the table, so this one is not an embarrassing loss for Real Salt Lake by any means. I know 3-0 is kind of an embarrassing scoreline, but the last goal came in the 90th minute, and it didn't really matter because Real Salt Lake threw everybody forward trying to get some goals, trying to get back in the game, and that just happens. It's soccer or football. I'm just going to start referring to it as football because that's what it is. I hope you all can make the delineation because I don't know about you, but I'm getting kind of tired of saying soccer or football. I'm just going to call it football. So that's just how football goes sometimes. Some weeks you just don't have it. And Real Salt Lake didn't have it this week against Portland, but oh boy, recently they've had it. Like I said last week, they scored 8 goals in 2 games. I'd say that's pretty good. So one hiccup, no big deal. Next game is massive. Real Salt Lake travels to Los Angeles to face off against fellow first place LAFC. Massive game. The last time LAFC played Real Salt Lake, if you'll remember, was way back in March. It was all snowy. And a lot of people really enjoyed it, except for the manager of LAFC, Steve Cherundolo. He was kind of whiny baby about it. And that might be the new manager of the U.S. men's national team. I hope not, but signs are pointing to that being him, so oh boy. So just bounce back. It's bounce back time. How do you react to getting punched in the mouth like Real Salt Lake just did? Earlier in the season when that happened, they rattled off 15 in a row. So I think they have the character to do it. They just need to prove it again. I also want to mention before we jump into the Olympians from Utah that Diego Luna was snubbed adjacent from the Olympian team. So what happened was they announced the roster and then they're allowed 6 alternates in case of injury or the clubs changing their mind because the Olympics are not an officially FIFA-sanctioned event, oddly enough. So the clubs can just say no. We don't want our player playing. We don't want him to get potentially hurt. And so they change their mind, and they can change their mind up until the start of the Olympics. And so they have about 6 alternates. And Diego Luna was selected to be an alternate, but he said no. And I kind of agree with his thinking on that because with how he's playing this year, I would say he's Real Salt Lake's third best player behind MVP candidate Chicho Arango and Justin Glad. Those two are both all-stars for this year's All-Star game. And then you have Diego Luna. So I can see his thinking. You disrespected me. I should be on the initial 24-man roster, I think, maybe 21. I should be there, and you guys said no, so I'm going to say no to you. And I'm going to prove you wrong, and he has recently. He was responsible for 3 of the goals against Atlanta. He was responsible for 2 of the goals against Houston. So he's kind of channeled that rejection or that disrespect into something that's been really, really fun to watch. So I'm behind Diego Luna deciding to not be an alternate for the Olympics. I think that's good. That shows that he thinks he's better than what the perception of him might be, and that can only mean good things for Real Salt Lake moving forward. So this one happens. 3-0. Real Salt Lake has never done well against Portland when they have to go to Oregon, and that kind of just continues here. So there's 2 more games left on this road trip. First one being against LAFC in the middle of the week, July 17th. So let's have Real Salt Lake get a result there. A draw or a win, I'm happy with both because it's a road game. If you can get a point on the road, if you average a point on the road, you're a very successful team. And that's what we need from Real Salt Lake. I just wish it was on something other than Apple TV Plus. I really do. I think that was a big miss by MLS. Maybe Apple put forward the most money to get it, but I feel like if it was on Amazon or YouTube, it would be so much better. But unfortunately, it's Apple TV, and that's just one extra subscription that I do not want to pay for, so I just wait for the highlights to hit YouTube. That's how I consume MLS, and probably will continue to consume MLS until that contract is up. Oy vey. All right, let's move on to the Olympics. We have 10 Olympians coming from Utah going to Paris. That is a very good number. It's up there. It's in the top, I would say, top 10 of states. Obviously, we're not going to have as many as California or Florida or Texas. Like, California is sending 133 people. That's insane. That's more than Texas, Illinois, New York combined, and almost more than Pennsylvania if you threw them in there. That's an insane amount of athletes coming from California. But as it stands, we have Taylor Booth, who is playing for the U.S. soccer team there. He originally started in Eden, Utah, and he also transferred to the Bayern Munich youth team in 2019 from Real Salt Lake's youth academy. So that's really good. Currently, he plays in the Netherlands top flight, which is not a league to sneeze at. And he's 23 years old, and he was named Player of the Month in 2022 with it's FC Utrecht. I don't expect you to know where that is. It's in the Netherlands, which is a Tier 2 league in Europe, and it's still a very good league. It's very impressive that he's been able to do that coming from Eden, Utah. So there we go. So that's our first one. Second, we have Connor Mance, hailing from Logan, Utah. He went to BYU, cross-country dude. He looks like a freaking stick, as you would expect a cross-country athlete to look like. He was a 3-time All-American in high school. He represented the U.S. in the junior races at the IAAF World Cross Country Championships in China. Say that 10 times fast. And qualified this year. He's expected to be in the medal conversation, which is very impressive in cross country because, well, you got those countries from Africa who have insane endurance when it comes to running. So that's pretty good. Next is Whitney Morgan. She's from Panguitch. She's on the track and field team. So good luck to her from Panguitch. That's interesting. It's a small place in Utah. We got Alex Cedric from Harriman. Alex is going to be competing in rugby. I think it's the sevens is what they play in the Olympics. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the sevens, where it's just 7-on-7. It's a smaller field, too. A lot faster-paced game. So that could be very entertaining to watch. We also have Maka Unufe. Dude is a beast. 6'2". He went to Provo High. Crazy athlete. His nickname while playing high school football was Catch Me If You Can. Maka, Catch Me If You Can Unufe, which is great. And good luck to him. I mean, rugby is coming up in America. Not as fast as like soccer, but it is coming up. And it's a very fun game to watch, even though I have a very tenuous grasp of what's happening. Because obviously I'm an American and I'm used to watching American football. So if somebody gets tackled, the play stops. That's not the case in rugby. I don't know what happens when a guy gets tackled. It's just like the ball pops up and people start running again. So I need to do more research into how this works. But it is fun to watch, even though I have no idea what's going on. Unlike something, say, like cricket. Yeah. All right, Clayton Young, another cross-country fellow, went to BYU. He was the 2019 NCAA Division I track and field champion in the 10,000 meters. That's a lot of running. Just reading that made me tired. He's also, he was second at the marathon team trials, which is how he qualified. And good luck to him. Cross country, I can't watch it because it just makes me so tired. It makes me so tired. And then lastly, we have Courtney Wayment-Smith. She is also going to be a part of the track and field teams. I believe she is cross-country as well. So a lot of cross-country runners from the state of Utah. We also have Garrett Schoonover and William Schoonover in wheelchair fencing at the Paralympics. And Ali Ibanez in wheelchair basketball. So root on our Utahns over in Paris. It's going to be fun. The Paris Olympics begin in 11 days from me recording this episode, which is the 14th of July. So for us here in Utah, we got Pioneer Day, and then we've got the start of the Olympics. So there you go. It's a good day of celebration. And what's really cool about this Olympic team, every state but two is represented. The two states that do not have an athlete representing them is North Dakota and Wyoming, where the total population of those two states is about the size of Provo, Utah. So that's not... I mean, it's too bad that they couldn't get one person, but otherwise, there's somebody from every state. So every state has a rooting interest, and I think that's awesome. So let's root for our American athletes and root extra hard for our Utah athletes as well. All right, so that's really everything I have to talk to you today about sports. There was the Big 12 Media Days for college football this past week, and I am so happy that the BYU-Utah rivalry is back on. I think the Big 12 completely fumbled the ball on this one, scheduling the game in the middle of the season. Like, come on, it's the biggest rivalry in your conference now, and it's not even close. So you screwed that one up. You really did. I hope they figure out that this needs to be an end-of-the-year thing, like, I don't know, lesser conferences like the WAC and the Mountain West Conference knew that this is going to be your keystone rivalry moving forward. Whether one team is any good or not, it's always a hard-fought game. Even if the score is a blowout, the players play their hearts out and are devastated when they lose. That's a rivalry. What's not a rivalry is BYU-Oklahoma State. Or Utah and, Texas Tech. Those are just random matchups. I don't know who they're actually wrapping up their seasons against. I guess I could look that up. But it's not something that you should be avoiding to schedule at the end of the year. But when it comes to this rivalry game, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be on November 9th, which is stupid. Again, Brett Yormark dropped the ball here. He also is claiming that the Big 12 is the deepest conference, and while that may be true, have you looked at the SEC? There's only two bad teams in the SEC, and that's Vanderbilt, who's there for baseball, basketball, and academics, and Mississippi State, who is there for baseball, basketball, and academics. So those are the only two teams that I think we'll miss out on a bowl from the SEC. I'll do my full college football preview in August as we get really close to the season starting. And then this coming Friday, we've got the college football video game coming out. And I have taken the day off of work. I will be streaming it all day. I am so stoked to play that. I'm so excited that it's back. And it looks like they didn't screw it up, which is quite honestly very rare for EA. But when we're looking at who these two teams are playing at the end of the season, going back to that original thought, BYU's playing Houston. What? Yeah, that's a rivalry game. What? And then Utah ends the season against Central Florida? Like, what are you thinking? Not even Colorado. Utah-Colorado was supposed to be a rivalry that the Pac-12 wanted because it was the two schools most east in their conference, and it's just like the Big 12 didn't understand the assignment, and they failed. Like, there's no rivalry games at the end of the season, which is just a miss. SEC has them. Alabama, you have the Iron Bowl. Alabama-Auburn. You've got Florida-Georgia. I mean, there's so many. Ohio State, Michigan. Hello? Clemson, Florida State. I mean, my goodness. But instead, we get Utah, Central Florida, and BYU Houston. The Battle of the Cougars, is that what is going to be called? So I'm very disappointed in the schedule makers of the Big 12, but it is what it is. And the reason I bring this up is at the Big 12 Media Days, I was so happy first to see Cam Rising there. If you watch his interviews, I don't understand how a single person on God's green earth does not like that young man. I can say that now. I'm old. I'm 34. I can say young man now. And his interviews are just fantastic. He even took the time to be on the BYU show. He even took the time to do that, and he was a class act throughout. He took the interview seriously. He answered the questions like you would expect him to. And so what he said at the Big 12 Media Day is, I just plain don't like BYU. That's great. He has never played them, and he doesn't like BYU. That's fantastic. And everybody's like, oh, that's poster board material. It's like, no, it's not. That's par for the course. You expect your chief rival to not like you. What, is he supposed to say, oh, I respect BYU, we're going to go in, we're going to fight hard? No! This is a rivalry. He said he wants to go down there and kick their blanks. Now, BYU's going to Salt Lake City for this one, so he doesn't have to go anywhere for it. But that's fantastic. I love it. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. It was like the only interesting thing that happened at the Big 12 Media Days. I also learned that Coach Prime, or Deion Sanders, his position coach at San Francisco for like the 1 year he was there, was BYU AD Tom Holmoe. I had no idea. That's really cool. And Coach Prime remembered him. So I don't understand the Coach Prime hate. I think he's a very charming individual. I think he has his vision on how you run a program and how you teach the kids that come in about the real world and how it's not always going to be laid at your feet. Not everybody's going to be bending over backwards for you. And that's what he's teaching these young kids. If he says you're not good enough, you're not good enough. You're going to be told that in the workforce all the time. So the hatred for Coach Prime, I don't understand. I love him. One of my dreams is to interview him. I would love to have him on the show, but this is so far. My show is so far below him right now. But like I said, the Big 12 is going to be very interesting this year because it is very deep. But I could count 4 teams that have a very realistic shot at missing out on a bowl, while there's only 2 that I think have a realistic shot at getting to the college football playoff. I'll get into that in a later episode, but that's kind of how I view the Big 12 now. All right, and then one more sports thing. I know I said I ran out of sports stuff, but I just wanted to give a shout out to the Utah Hockey Club. Every outlet that I'm reading, from Yahoo Sports, CBS Sports, The Athletic, The Ringer, ESPN, is touting this offseason as a success. The Athletic has loved it to death. They gave the Utah Hockey Club an A for their offseason moves, and ESPN gave them a B+. Basically, the only thing missing from the offseason was hitting a home run in free agency, which they didn't do. And for ESPN, a home run is like getting Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault. That's not going to happen. Those guys want to win a cup, and while this roster is on the up and up, it's not quite there yet. But they only lost one, air quotes, key player, and they needed to lose him to be able to get the guys they wanted. Overall, I think it was a very successful offseason. I think they have enough cap room to make some noise at the trade deadline in February, which I know is crazy to think about. That's 7 months away, but it's going to be an exciting season for the hockey club. So strap your helmets on, get those pads ready. It's going to be a fun season. Okay, so that's it for sports. As far as video games go, please do join me on my stream. That is the Matt Cave Podcast, all one word, on YouTube, or twitch.tv/Matts, M-A-T-T-S, Cave. Like I said, on the 19th, I will be playing EA Sports College Football 25. That's so weird to say. Basically, NCAA Football 25. And I've also just been playing Final Fantasy 14 or Destiny 2. Just come on in, hang out, chat with me. It'll be a good time for you. But other video game news, there's not really much out there. So for my very important message that I needed to just say, it's going to be starting now. So if that's all you wanted to hear, I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for being here. But this is something that's kind of out of left field for my show. It's just something I feel like needs to be said, and I haven't been hearing it until yesterday. So, click out, end it. I love you. See you next week. If this is not your thing, it is politics related. Okay, so for those of you that are sticking around, this is something that's been weighing on my mind and kind of came to a head yesterday with the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I do not like that man. I don't like his politics. I don't like his attitude. I don't like how he treats other people. The way I have been saying that is by voting against him actively. Any chance I get, I vote against people that he endorses. I vote against all of his policies, all of his mouthpieces. I vote against those people. That's how it should be done in America. Not what we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania. Not one person playing God for the rest of us. That's not how it's done. In America, we settle our differences not with bullets, but with words and at the ballot box. That's how it needs to remain. The way I look at it is everybody is angry. Everybody is passionate because they want to see what's best for America, their vision for America. That's a good thing. You're passionate about this country. You love this country. You want to see it move forward. That's good. Just harness that passion and do not turn it into hate. Turn it into positive action, into educating. Instead of hate posting online, educate people. Get into honest conversations with others. Let them know that you disagree with them and this is why. Don't just say, that's stupid, I hate you. Say, that's an interesting take. Here's why I disagree. And have an honest discourse with somebody. I do this all the time at work. I have differing opinions than a lot of people. But we can still get along. We're still, after it all, we are still Americans. So channel your hatred and passion into positive things. Harness that energy. That's kind of what I do on this podcast. I have a lot of passion and energy for the state of Utah and the sports teams we have, and I have a lot of passion about the positive impact of video games. And I took that and I created something with it. That's what we need to do with politics. And I understand this is completely out of left field. This is not my show, but it's something that needs to be said. We do not do this in America. It's not the way to be done in a peaceful democracy. If you disagree, you vote with that disagreement with that passion. You go and vote. And then if your chosen representative, whoever, senator, whatever it is, does not get elected, take the time to write an email to whoever gets elected and just say, this is what I'm worried about. Can you tell me how you view these things and how you're going to vote? Because you're both passionate about this country. You love living here. So just get those answers and get it in front of these people. I understand there's a lot of noise out there. Just hunker down. Understand your own beliefs. Formulate them. And have an honest discussion with other Americans. Don't fall into the morass of hatred, of us versus them. That's not America. It's us. We are America. So if you're red, if you're blue, if you're green, if you're yellow, if you're orange, purple, pink, I don't care. I love you because you're an American. I love us because we have the opportunity to speak up and speak out. We also have the ability to exercise our right to vote. Our grandparents did not fight and die in all of those wars for one person to make a decision on our behalf. They fought and died. They bled. They cried to prevent that. Remember that. The next time you get angered about something the left says, the right says, the center says, the up says, the down says, whoever, you get your initial reaction. I get it. You get that anger. Take a breath. Analyze what's being said and how you would respond to it. That's what needs to happen. So thank you for listening to that little bit right there. We need peace. We need understanding. We need to love each other more. I'm not telling you how to vote because that's not what anyone should do. Do your own research. If you struggle to understand where somebody is voting or how they're voting, reach out to anybody you think that would know. And there are so many resources for you to get that information. Just please stop with the hateful rhetoric. That's the show. That's my heartfelt message to everyone. And I'll see you next week.